can a focus on spirituality impact your personal relationships?
Oh, God.
The ones, but I'm not talking about like your day-to-day affairs, the ones where people know your buttons and they know how to push them.
For me, I can only talk about my experience because I think that's powerful, right? Because you talk about what works for you. I'm still married, and
You're a lovely woman, I might add.
of course. But I don't want to be one of those pastors talking about how hot my wife is, because I think that's nonsense. Or like, really juvenile. I had to throw that in there because there's too many young.
I'll do it for you. Like I'm going to tell you. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. And today I am thrilled and honored to have a personal friend of mine on the show, Pastor Jung. How are you?
I'm pretty excited to be here, and really looking forward to having a great conversation with you.
Yeah, and I'm excited to have you and always thrilled to see you. And folks, today what we're going to be talking about is spirituality and like, why should we care about spirituality? What is it? How do we apply it to our lives, and what can the benefits be? And not just in the area of relationship, but in the areas of life in general.
Right. So I think, to fully understand spirituality, I guess we'll just start from the beginning. My spirituality initiated or grew or sparked when I was in youth group, when I was young. My father happened to be a pastor, and there was a lot of experiences.
Lucky guy.
So, good and bad, because being a PK or a pastor's son comes with, goods and bads. Like, definitely a lot of pressure that you don't need when you're young. There's this like sense of trying to live up to something. And me being from the Korean culture, there was a lot more of that. Just like, all Korean parents want their kids to go to Harvard. It's so there was this expectation, and it was hard to meet. And but along that journey, I discovered my own spirituality, my own faith. I started to nurture it myself, reading the Word of God, which is, I think, one of the key foundational things to continuing to build your spirituality. It's a guide, and it definitely helped guide a lot of my life. I've pastored and done all different types of ministries in my life. And now that I'm a little bit older now, I've transitioned also into, being a businessman and stuff. And and that carries with it a certain amount of responsibilities. And my spirituality continues to evolve. And I don't think it kind of just stops growing at some point. Just because you get saved.
I hope not. Right. Hey, so I have a question. Given that you grew up in an environment with high expectations about spirituality, it sounds like you got past that, right? Like I grew up in a household where it was expected that I was going to be a lawyer, and that was the last thing in the world I was ever going to be, and I didn't. But for you, you somehow got past that. It sounds like somehow your heart got plugged in. So how did your heart lead you into, coming out of this environment and becoming a pastor?
Well, being a pastor, like, I don't see it as an occupation. I've always seen it as a calling, Rich. Like, it's not a W-2, it's not employment. It's for me, it's just a way of life where you're always kind of looking out for other people. And a pastor is not someone who has it all together. You know that, Rich. It's someone who, literally takes the time to call someone and to say, how are you doing? And that's how, like, our relationship grew. And like, we have friends that we connect with, and that's one of the keys to, making, allowing our friendships to continue to nurture each other. Like they say, iron sharpens iron. You actually got me a hat that said iron sharpens iron, and I love it. Rylan, actually, my son wears it more than I do. But anyways, I think there's this idea that spirituality is like this event or something that you do meditatively in the morning or something, but it's not. I think you just carry it with you throughout. And the expectation part, being a pastor, like I said, it's not a job, it's a career. It's just something that, not a career, but it's a calling. That's something that you want to do. And you just have it inside of you to care for other people. And even that compassion and that love and that grace comes from God. It doesn't come from just my ideas. As you plug into the source, for me, which is Jesus Christ, he continues to, develop and help me to see the things that I need to, correct. It's a cadence in my life where continually I'm grateful. I think that's one of the keys to the spirituality that I've experienced or that I've learned, is that there's this constant sense of being grateful. I'm learning lessons every day with my son.
Gratitude
Right.
is really, really important. You know, you said so many things that are important that I just want to call out. The first is, I love the way you said it's a calling. Like there's a purpose or a fulfillment
Right.
that happens for you in doing this. And a lot of the work that we're doing with people right now is about helping them find their
Right.
sense of purpose or mission.
Right.
And then another thing you talked about was how a part of that calling, you know, is just, it isn't that you do everything perfectly, it's that you're connected to people. And I think for those of us in the audience who are not necessarily religiously affiliated, or may even be ambivalent
Right.
about the idea of a higher power, I think the broadest definition of spirituality that we could use is connection to
Right.
the wider connection. It could be connection to nature, could be connection to the earth, connection to the universe, you know, whatever, however you want to frame it. But spirituality is about connecting and how we connect.
That's a great point. I do want to mention something, not to show off my biblical knowledge or anything like that, but if you look back in history, and you can search it and research it, but one of the things that made Christianity, for me, that's just something that, you know, has been, I adopted that as my faith. But Christianity, one of the things that, and I'm trying to just see the lesson here, not, you know, like promote one, you know, type or brand, because it, you know, that's not what it's about. But Christianity was respected, or came to be respected, because I mean, when the time back in the days with, you know, like the Roman Empire was, you know, controlling and ruling over, you know, that part of the world. And a lot of, I remember there was, from what I learned from my professors and stuff, there was you know, a lot of people were getting sick. There was some sort of a disease or a plague that was going around. And one of the things that made Christianity so attractive to people who didn't have any understanding about God was that they cared for one another. They were the ones that went when people, you know, it's kind of ironic, but we have a pandemic going on with COVID. You know, people wear masks. We don't want to get anything. We don't want to catch anything. And at that time, it was kind of like that, where people were getting sick and they were dying. But the ones that actually went into people's homes, that, you know, made them the food and took care of people, were the Christian brothers and sisters. And that's how it became such a powerful message of how, you know, like the spirituality encompasses, like, you know, care for one another, and also, you know, looking out and having that connection with one another. I think that's a really key point of how my spirituality grew, because one of the things that when we go out, or when we, like, you know, hang out or have breakfast, like, everybody accuses us, you know, like my wife says that I'm like the town mayor, and you too, you've gotten that too. But we just have this like I said, calling our purpose, where we just want to initiate and talk to people. We have this like really sixth sense, or like a really sensitive understanding of maybe like someone's going through something. If they say something back, we're like, you know, tell us about it, right? And then it leads to, it might not be like the most intimate thing, but it leads to conversations, or a little word, or, you know, when you leave your tip and say, you know, God bless you, we'll pray for you, and it allows people to feel like their day got better. And I think, like, it's so simple as that, but spirituality oozes out of people when it's done right. You know, there's that positive energy that lifts up people.
So it isn't any kind of connection. It's an empathetic connection, a caring connection,
for sure.
investment in other people. And
yeah, but it doesn't have a motive, though. Yeah, but it doesn't have a motive. Like, it has to come out of just the genuine and goodness of your heart. I think that's key. You got to check your motives, because if you're doing it for something, for me, that's not, you know, that's not motivating for me. It has to be done out of
Napoleon Hill wrote this book, Think and Grow Rich, which is like the touchstone of many entrepreneurs. And it's very atheistic, non-theistic.
Right.
But one of the things that Napoleon Hill calls out is that he's all about, if you're going to pursue a desire, he says it is really important that it not be at the expense of anyone or anything else. You know, which is it's that same idea that at the very least, it needs to be not diminishing others.
Right. I agree with you 1000%. Yeah. That is a key component of why my spirituality stays strong. It's because I guard it and I keep it pure. Not so I can get something out of somebody. It's genuinely just, you know, to be good. Also, as a business owner, I have to care for a lot of employees. And for me, motivation. And because, everyone's kind of weary when you're working for someone, like, what kind of a, leader is this person? What kind of a, like a boss is this guy? But, when you get to know me and you realize, like, the number one thing that I care about is you, like, and that's the key to becoming successful in any kind of business. You definitely have to care about the people who have entrusted their time, energy, and resources of, trying to work with you to do business. You got to show them that type or that level of respect.
The benchmark of a successful business, as it's touted by society and by business, right, is financial success. But it sounds like you're talking about something more than that.
Well, spirituality, it's just oozing into the business world of what I do. And people can't help it. Like, they like,
how does spirituality meld with your business, for example?
First of all, I do not go talking about, Jesus or this and try to convert, like, all of that thing that, the church thinks is spirituality is not what is
all right.
important.
So it's not about religion.
Right. It's not about religion. It's
about practicing your values.
Exactly. And that value to me, they gotta know, my CEO, my boss cares about me as a person more than anything else. And something in his value system is causing that. And I want to know what that is. And they ask me sometimes. And it's just like,
how does that impact your bottom line? How does that impact your margin? The growth of the business.
I'm telling you, Rich, spirituality, it can't be an indicator of whether you're doing something right or not, right? Because you don't want it to become like a ledger or like a religious thing where you're trying to, count tallies and stuff like that. It's not like that. But bottom line is wonderful. Like, I went from, like there's that, silly Drake song, which is like, we went from, 0 to 100 real quick. For me, working previously, I've had many different jobs, jack of all trades, even done law enforcement. And when that was, that's like, even with overtime, maybe like what, 70,000, 60,000, whatever it, was, to now, doing incredibly well. And all of that was because of, this idea that you take your spirituality with you and your values, and you just keep putting it into everything that you do. And it's not about, like trying to take over things or, try to suppress people. I have people working for me that are from everywhere and, just every race, and it doesn't matter, and every lifestyle, and we accept and we love and we treat them with such respect that, they say, it's wonderful working with you. And
it sounds like spirituality, as it applies to your business, has to do with caring. It has to do with being non-judgmental of other people's choices. Sure. It has to do with supporting them. But I think I'm still missing the key part. Let me break it down into small pieces.
Sure.
How much has caring and being non-judgmental and putting the well-being of your employees on the front burner diminished your business?
None whatsoever.
It's a trick question.
It's multiplied my business more than tenfold.
Actually multiplied your business.
Exactly.
So the whole point is that when you run a business where you really care about your people, what happens?
And you know what's crazy? The gospel always penetrates and, just interrupts, my thinking. I guess it's just part of my, like my logic or the way that I grew up. But, that's how God, shows love to me. I don't want judgment, from him. I want to be, cared for. Recently
I've been rule, it's do unto others.
Right. And recently I've discovered, like, I would protect my son, from anything. Like, just a made up scenario, but if a pit bull was running towards my son, I would jump in front of it, and I'd rather get mauled than let my son get hurt. Right. Like, every parent would have that kind of a heart. But for me, like, I've been discovering, like, if I have a heart like that for my son and I am not perfect, how much more is God, who is perfect, and how much would he, love and protect me? And so when you start to grasp that and you get the sense of gratefulness of how God, and you understand how much God is actually caring for you and protecting you, then you just share that and you let that spirituality ooze out into your business, into your employees. And, like, I have over 100 employees, and like, to show that kind of love and care, it just has to come out. It has to be kind of like carried, or what would you say? Like, it has to be, there needs to be something that, like, allows it to be transferred. And that is spirituality. Because you can't hide that. Like, you can't hide your demeanor. You can't be rude and, say that your spirituality is, like healthy or good. Like, and I'm not saying that you can't be perfect. I mean, you have to be perfect, but the point is, like, there's this natural thing that there's like a tractor beam that pulls you to goodness, to kindness, to caring for others and stuff. If your spirituality is on track, and like, if you're connected to a positive source, you can, share that positivity with others.
Can we change to a slightly different but related topic for a second?
Sure.
All right, so let's go to an area that really challenges some people.
Okay.
And that is personal relationships.
Okay.
Let's talk particularly partnership, loving relationships. And so, what I know I work with a lot of people who are seriously challenged in their loving relationships. And they claim to have spirituality in their life in some way, shape, or form at different levels. Like, I get them at all different levels. I get people who are super engaged, people who are somewhat engaged, people who used to be but don't think about it much. I get the whole thing.
Right.
So
the whole game.
How can a focus on spirituality impact your personal relationships?
Oh, God.
But I'm not talking about like your day-to-day affairs, the ones where people know your buttons and they know how to push them.
For me, I can only talk about my experience because I think that's powerful, right? Because you talk about what works for you. I'm still married, and
You're a lovely woman, I might add.
of course. But I don't want to be one of those pastors talking about how hot my wife is, because I think that's nonsensical, or like, really juvenile. I had to throw that in there because there's too many young.
No, I'll do it for you. Like, I'm going to tell you, folks, this is an intelligent, charismatic, gorgeous, caring, emotionally intelligent, deep thinking human being, and an excellent mom. And from what I hear, a really good wife.
She's the better half. And I think this is critical. Like, for me, I know it's easy to say, like, put others first. I know it's easy to say honor, your wife and all that, or, to respect them and all that. Like, words are so easy. But for me, like, like every time I connect to God and I have my time of spirituality where I'm recharging, it's kind of like your iPhone. As I'm recharging and I spend time, I realize, like, man, like, the way that God loves me, I need to love my wife so much better. And if you have that posture or that type of spiritual, like, how would you call it? Like, it's that spirituality that keeps, like, motivating you. That just helps me a lot of times when, things are not going my way. Like, when it comes to financial decisions or big things like that, I need my wife's approval. Like, we have to communicate, even though I want to do certain things with even my own resources or with things that I've earned myself. So, like, those times can be frustrating. It can be frustrating, on, the way you want to parent. Like, you have an idea of how you think, your parents treated you, and you think that's great. And then, your wife doesn't have the same ideas. But through it all, like, we're human beings. We might, have that, like, back and forth or whatever. But in order for a relationship to, really stay healthy and to really, do well, you have to have something where, like, it's the spirituality is keeping you on the right track. And so whenever I think about God, I always realize and I get grateful. And because of this, it causes a chain reaction where I understand my wife and I want to treat her better. So that will continually go in a vicious cycle for me. And that allows us to stay married, to forgive, to love, and to overlook our shortcomings. We're not perfect. And yet, that allows us to continue to grow. And as I became more mature and as I became, and I understood relationships more and, recognize different personalities and stuff, like, we might not have, like, everything might not be perfect, but it's your attitude and the way that you, go about it. That's everything. It's like, you can't change everything, but if you change your attitude towards it or the way that you see something, that perspective is going to go a long way. And helping you to continue to, strengthen this thing, called marriage.
So much there. I'm going to break that down for the audience. So just going back to the beginning of the conversation, You know, we're talking about spirituality. Spirituality, we've talked about in the context of our connection to one another, our connection to whatever we see, the greater good or the wider universe or God or whatever you want to call it as being. And what we talked about also about how the importance of values and also we kind of touched on a sense of vision or mission as part of your spirituality. Like, where are you called? What are you called to? Where do you feel like you're going? And we talked about how that shows up in our day-to-day life. We talked about it in business, and now in marriage, we've gotten into kind of the juicier stuff, which is where some of the conflict is more likely to happen, though it can certainly happen in those other arenas. And part of this is, in addition to knowing where you want to go and letting that guide how you move through your emotions versus your emotions moving you, you know, having that sense of where you want to go and what you're going to do with those feelings. There are spiritual practices, which you actually touched on. There are spiritual practices that can help you with that. In this show, we've talked a lot about mindfulness, meditation, and prayer as being scientifically proven to help people stay in the more rational part of their brains. Contrary to popular belief, spiritual practices help you to be more rational, not more emotional. And that is part of what helps you. Like in those moments where have a disagreement about child rearing, which you brought up, you know, instead of going da 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 da, my mom and dad, and how could you, you know, when you have those regular practices in your life, you're less likely to go from 0 to 60 and more likely to catch yourself and remember what it is you're creating together, and that something better might actually come out of the conversation.
Can I add this, Rich? And I think it's important to put as a disclaimer, because there might be other people who, on your, influence of or your community that you reach out to and be like, you know what, I'm Christian, and you know what, I live by the Bible and all that stuff. And yes, it's absolutely true. Everything for me is, from that's the foundation. But I do want to preface this one really important key that has helped me to maintain my spirituality. It's not, and I'm going to, how people love keys. I'll give you a key. One of the keys to maintaining a good spirituality is to resist the temptation to weaponize your religion or weaponize your knowledge of the religion. So,
or weaponize your child or
whatever it is. Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like, being law enforcement and all that stuff too. Like, I have this ability. As you know, you're really great in martial arts as well and all that stuff. We can attack. We can overcome. We can do all that stuff, but I realize that the greatest power that we have is to submit or to hold back. And that's Jesus right there on the cross. Like, I can't understand why a man who is part God and has all the power in the universe, he could have just killed all of those people, or destroyed them, or lightning fall or whatever, but he chose not to do that. He just chose to submit to take on the sin of the world in order for us to be saved and all that stuff. That's just my belief. But that, I think, is a powerful way to understand things. So instead of using the power that you have against someone else, whether it's your spouse, your wife, your employees, or whoever, even your church, I think some pastors even use the Bible and their righteousness or their leadership or that power, and they use it for their, like, once again, about agenda and all that stuff and your own purposes. And I'm just saying, be careful of that. Like, that's something, as I get older, I realize there's a tremendous responsibility. One day I will give an account of my life. I will give an account of everything that I did. And if I stand before my Savior, my Lord, and whom I call God, I cannot, live this life where I, harm people, hit people over the head, like, and then, tell everybody, submit to me. I'm right. As I get older, I'm realizing, I don't need to be right. Being right is not always the best. And falling back. And as part of that spirituality is, once again, that humbling, that grateful understanding and gratitude and all that stuff. That's all part of it. And that's part of my journey, my spiritual journey. And for me, it's reaped so much benefits, Rich. Like, like I said, my life is completely turned around from what it was in the past, and the future and my purpose is bright. And I want to do even more types of ways to help people and to make this world a better place. And in order for me to do that, I'm realizing that as I less of me, more of something, and this is for me, a spirituality. It's allowing every area of my life, whether it's my marriage or my, like being a parent or, being a business owner, it's excelled and it's done well. And yet I'm not perfect. And I realize every day, oh, I wish I can, be a better father to my son, be a better husband. And it's just continual hunger and this growth. And
so what are some ways that our audience, some tools our audience can take home that'll help them develop their spirituality on a daily basis? I mean, since it's beneficial to all these areas of your life.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you have a religion, then connect to it. I think religion is a very good medium in order for you to connect to becoming spiritual.
Can
right?
I pipe in something with that?
What?
Can I just pipe something in there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just so you know, resilience, studies of building resilience people show that if you are part of a spiritual group and connected to at least 8 people in that group, that you are going to weather things like a pandemic so much better than if you're part of a group and not connected, or not part of a group at all.
How many times did I call you? Like, you know what I'm saying?
And vice versa. Right. And keep going. What else you got for us?
You're right. Absolutely right. Let's just really break it down and make it simple. But whatever faith that, you have, connect to it, because it's a great medium for you to stay grounded and allow that spirituality to grow. If you don't have any type of spirituality, there's also many types of come on, nowadays, even my iPhone tells me to breathe or to meditate and to do stuff. There's this tremendous sense of mental, health and getting into a good space, a good energy. I'm going to be honest with you, all of that stuff, Rich, is kind of like a mirror image of the gospel and God and everything. And people think Disney movies are so great, but they're just a reflection of the Bible, as in the story of, whatever. So what I'm saying is, whatever you call it in your vocabulary, it doesn't matter, but connect to a source that's greater than yourself, because you yourself it's being alone and thinking that somehow you're gonna charge yourself and do all that. You can't. My iPhone, no matter how much it wants to update, it cannot update without my permission. And I think there needs to be someone greater who's who's kind of helping you to connect to that source. Because in that source, or reading a book, reading the Bible, listening to meditative music or worship music, if that's what you like, whatever it is, connect yourself to something that's better or whole or positive, so that you can be challenged to something. But I'll say this, even spirituality, though, I could be watching Avenger movie. I was telling you this the other day, but I could be watching Avengers and I can still see the gospel. I can see how God is trying to speak to me. So God, or this universe, or this whatever it is communicating to you all the time. Are you open to it? Do you take the time to listen to that? It's taking that time, there's been so many leaders who've told us this, but connect to something that's greater than yourself. Connect to something positive. Be with a group of people that, you can be accountable to. Spirituality grows within that, right? Because when I tell you about what I'm learning or what spiritual things that I've discussed or I've realized, then, we kind of, share it with each other and we both grow. So having that group, having a counselor, if you're in a deep, hole and you just don't know where to go, you need someone to kind of show you the way out of that darkness. And I think, those are just such simple ways, but there's so many things to that. Of course, you can go deep into how to do that, but to be honest, the methodology is not as important as you doing something. It's like when you're super overweight and you want to try to get healthier again, and you work out. Any movement is good. Do you get what I'm trying to say, Rich? Any movement is good. Go for a walk for 5 minutes, but then it'll grow to 10 minutes, or it'll lead to you getting a treadmill and you running or do something. But just begin something, and that's going to help. If you need help, we got you and me and resources everywhere. They can ask questions and we can kind of help guide them along. And that's why we're called to be pastors, right? We're not. It's a calling. It's not.
That's why you were called to be a pastor. Yes.
Yes, I'm just saying. I kind of believe that we're all, as human beings, called to be someone who takes care of other people. And if you want to call that a pastor, that's what I would call a pastor. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. So I'm going to ask you the question I ask everyone at the end of the show, which is, what is the legacy you want to leave behind?
Oh gosh, my name doesn't need to be on that legacy. Of course, as a human being, I have desires to have my son do something great or pass that down. But even that, I've come to the point where, that is not as valuable as what it used to be in the past. As I become more and more spiritually enlightened, and as I grow, I realize one of the greatest impact you can have is going to be something that no one's going to know about. It's like, you donating to a child, like, and in another, like halfway across the world, and that kid will grow up one day, and when they go to college or something, they'll remember, what, there was a family that took care of me, that sponsored me, and like now I have a great life. I sponsored a kid in Africa and Malawi, actually, and I didn't know this, but he was actually like a son of like a tribe leader, or someone important, and later on he became some sort of a prince and stuff. And he he sent me a letter and said how much like he appreciated us, being in his life and helping him to whatever. But it was all him, it was all God taking care of that through me. But like, I don't think the legacy is going to have my name on it. It's not going to be like, oh, because my name is not that important. Who I am is not, because what I stand for will continue to go forth. Like, I think there will always be good leaders coming up, because even within our friendship, we're, mentoring people younger than us. They will take over the mantle and they will do well. So I think long as like this idea of, I just want to be a really positive, good force on this earth, not just be someone who has the title of religious leader and tries to like absorb and take everything from people. I don't think that's the way. For me, God has just never allowed me to take from others so that I can, become more. Like, it's always been like God gives to me so that I can, share and give to others. I think that for me is a great legacy. Just continuing to just sow seeds and just give and give, and nothing with my name on it. It doesn't need to have anything for my glory. Everything just needs to just be for the betterment of this earth, society and everything else. I think that would be a great legacy.
Love it.
Yeah.
I want to be a prince. I want to be the Fresh Prince of Pelham. That's
Oh gosh. Yeah. It was a pleasure speaking with you. It's different from just talking on the phone and then us, formally doing this, but it's been fun. If you ever invite me again, I'll be happy to do so.
Cool.
And I wish the best for all of the people who will be watching this, and I hope that it can help a lot of different people, or at least spark the conversation about what spirituality is. And I might not have it all together, but that's okay. But if the conversation starts and someone says, "Well, that's not spirituality, but this is," great. Now you can share that, and let's continue to communicate within the community and in that space, and allow more enlightenment and growth and intelligence and all that stuff to just prosper. So that'll be great.
I wonder if any of us has it all together.
If anyone does, stay away. Stay away.
All right. Have a great day, and thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for having me, and thank you to everyone.